The Prime Minister, as we all know, is currently on a two-day visit to UAE and Qatar, but the visit is creating waves for more than diplomatic reasons. Because whether it is UAE or Qatar or Saudi Arabia, India's engagement with the Middle East in particular and the Islamic world at large is at an unprecedented high. This will be Prime Minister Modi's seventh visit to the UAE since 2015 and the third in just the last 8 months. In less than a year, the leaders of UAE and India have met 5 times. Remember, in 2015, Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian PM to visit the UAE in 34 years. So in 2015, the first PM who went to UAE was after 34 years. Just to put that in perspective, the last time an Indian Prime Minister went to the UAE, before Modi did, I hadn't even been born. But how that relationship has changed since then is apparent in the images we saw in just the last few hours, just the last 48 hours. The most heartening image, of course, was the release of 8 Indian ex-Navy men who had been imprisoned by Qatar, allegedly on charges of espionage, and put on death row. The second is the beginning of UPI payments between India and UAE, and of course the one game-changer image that is making the maximum news, the opening of the first Hindu temple in UAE, the Swami Narayan Baptist temple.
So what you see behind me is a beautiful BAPS Hindu temple. It's the first traditional Hindu temple in United Arab Emirates. It's built on 27 acres of land, a land which is gifted by the leadership of UAE. So we are really thankful for the graciousness of the leadership of UAE. At the same time, we are thankful to the leadership of India. Because of their will and support, we have built this beautiful temple.
Obviously, the temple was prayed for by His Holiness Pramukh Swami in 1997, but that prayer was for harmony. May countries come together, may religions and cultures come together. So the significance of this mandir is to breathe in a fresh air of harmony, that cultures, religions, communities and countries can coexist. May this message of greater harmony for the world go from this Hindu temple, which at the core has Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. And incidentally, more than 60,000 people from all different countries, races and religions have come together to place a brick for this beautiful temple.
At 7 visits, the Prime Minister has now gone to the UAE as many times as he's been to Japan and France. Only the US, with 8 visits, has been a more frequent destination for Mr. Modi. That just underlines for you the kind of importance that the Middle East and UAE has been given by this dispensation. His first visit in 2015 was the first by an Indian PM in 34 years. His second in 2018 was all about economy and commerce with agreements on petroleum and finance. His third saw him receive the UAE's highest honor, the Order of Zayed, in 2019. Then in 2022, he paid a condolence visit on the demise of UAE President Khalifa bin Zayed. Last year, he visited the UAE twice, first for an official visit and the second for a COP28 summit in Dubai. So the basic question we're asking is, can there be any denial that the Modi government is rewriting India's relationship with the Middle East? Now, with this unprecedented bonhomie with the Islamic world, will the government and Mr. Modi in particular be able to break the traditional tropes associated not just with him, his government, but also his party, the BJP? Joining us now on the debate, we have Shazia Almi, spokesperson of the BJP, Harshvardhan Tripathi, senior journalist, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, Syed Asad Abbas, both political analysts, and political analyst Asif Sohail. But my first question is to former diplomat Veena Sekhri. Veena Sekhri, if somebody was to argue that the kind of relationship we have with the Middle East, in particular, with the UAE, is unparalleled by anything that we've seen in the past, would it be an overstatement?
Absolutely not. It would be a correct statement, a very fair and good assessment, because I think that the biggest message that is coming out of this visit, as you enumerated, it's an area, a country to which the Prime Minister has given the utmost importance, from making that first visit after a gap of decades and then following it up with so many visits in just the last 9 years. Now, I think the principle that is being established here, and this is the one which our Prime Minister has worked for and which is the core of his message to the world, Sarva Dharma Sambhav. That we are saying that India is a country where all religions can coexist, and this is our message to the world, that all religions should coexist everywhere in the world. Not just in, there should be, even if the majority of a country belong to one religion, still Sarva Dharma Sambhav is possible. And the opening of the Swami Narayan temple, the inauguration of the Swami Narayan temple on land donated by the leader himself, by the leader of the UAE himself, 13 or 14 acres was given by him out of the 27 acres. It's amazing. It's a message that coincides with what the president of the UAE wants to tell his own people. And this is such an important message that he's telling his own people. He's creating the mindset in his people of Sarva Dharma Sambhav. Yes, we are Islamic, we follow the Islamic faith, but all religions must be able to coexist. In that lies the prosperity of UAE. And I think the UAE-India relations, the way in which they have developed, have really proved this point, because, you know, it's a relationship where the UAE is looking towards a post-fossil fuels world, where they're looking at what they're going to do in the post-fossil fuel world. And they have found India as the best partner for investing their money, for creating a win-win situation. Their investment and India's economic development going hand in hand. And you know that UAE's foreign direct investment in India is now in the range of about $11 billion, which is much more than their investment even in China. So it shows that you chose,
ma'am, interesting that you chose Sarva Dharma Sambhav as the message that India is giving through all of these visits, because all this while, Mr. Abbas, we were told pre-2014 that this is a majoritarian party led by a majoritarian man, and it's going to be a majoritarian government. But the only other country he's visited more times than the UAE is America. Sarv Dharma Sambhav. Syed Abbas.
Veena ji has very beautifully articulated her point. Well, let me tell you, ma'am, I have a differing point of view and I'll share it with you. सर्व धर्म संभाव की जो बात है बहुत बेहतरीन है, बहुत खूबसूरत है. Not just that, even Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one world, one family. It's great that Modi ji is having fantastic relations with the OIC countries, but I see a certain sense of duplicity here. And that is, when Modi ji is cutting out a figure that he's absolutely great with the Muslim countries, why don't we see the same reflection here in India? Why does his own party leaders make communal statements? Here in Karnataka elections, the back then state leader said, roads infrastructure is not an issue, love jihad is an issue. Why is it that doing Hindu-Muslim here in India is okay, but outside, Hindu-Muslim bhai, Hindu country, Muslim country bhai, aise hota kyun hai? Why can't Modi ji take a strict action against those leaders of his party here in India and not allow them to make communal statements? Sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, achhi baat hai. Hona chahiye. But why not take strict actions against those leaders? Not just BJP leaders, but from the RSS, from the VHP, the right-wing group who go about trolling people of other community. I think if that action is taken, nothing like it. I think it's a win-win and it's a great situation for Modi ji outside India and Modi ji in India. Sabka vishwas bhi hoga, sabka vikas bhi hoga, sabka saath bhi hoga.
Miss Sikri.
Yeah, you know, I think ये जो आप कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं, सब कुछ होना चाहिए, लेकिन मैं एक बात कहूंगी कि equal treatment for all religions is what is the objective even in India. In India, that is the objective. Now, if there are fringe elements and made some statements, well, they should be punished. The law should take its course. And in fact, that is there's so many cases filed on this case of all religions. I'm not talking of any one religion. because there are similar actions, we have similar cases, beheadings and so on, which are taking place in all religions. So when there is an action taken, it should be taken against people of all religions, and people of all religions must maintain this belief in sabka vishwas, sabka saath, sabka prayas. Everybody has to try for it. That point is very important. So building confidence and trust is a two-way street. And I think that we have seen, and I'd like to point out one thing very clearly also, that many of the votes that we have seen, which have come in many states of India, shows that there is the Muslim vote going to the BJP as well. It is there. I'm not saying there are no problems. We are a huge country. We have people of all, there are problems. But we have to work together. We have to maintain the faith, and we have to work together to overcome those problems. And not be in, accusation. If somebody makes an accusation, fine, take action against that. If somebody else makes an accusation in another religion, take action against that also. So we should not be pointing fingers at each other, but should be working together to overcome any differences that are there.
Okay, let me bring in Shazia Almi. Sometimes we miss the woods for the trees. Getting hung up, do you think, on domestic politics is preventing us from looking at the larger picture, Shazia Almi, of a bigger message that is being sent, that one will engage with all countries, but not through the traditional mold of how relationships were defined. Earlier, it was always, the Islamic world, and they would always see us as India-Pakistan. All relationships are India-Pakistan. Now, India stands alone, and if I may say so, above what relationship Pakistan enjoys with Islamic countries. Shazia Almi.
Yes, and there are small minds, and I think it's difficult for them to comprehend the expansiveness, the largeness of this message, and the entire bandwidth of what Modi ji is trying to convey. And I think it's come through many times when you look at not just Sarva Dharma Sambhav, but when Modi ji said that India is a land of Buddh and not Yudh. When you talk about Vasudev Kutumbakam, and I think there is so much to be learned there. So he is actually talking about all-inclusiveness, the actual message of Vedant, of what Sanatan Dharma is meant to be. And so it's much larger than how we think of it. And I think there are groups and sections and who are stuck in this warp, and they haven't gone beyond that. And they're so stuck with this identity politics that they refuse to expand their horizon, also of who they are, that they represent this vast consciousness of this land, this people. And this is recognized, in fact, by Sheikh bin Zayed. And in all his glory, in all his graciousness, and which is what we're going to see. So this is absolutely wonderful. Let us not let anybody dampen our spirits with their fixed old ideas of creating rancor and disbelief and being cynical. Let's embrace a bigger idea today and celebrate in this oneness. I think this is glorious. This is historic. Can you imagine the first ever temple being inaugurated in UAE, a large one, 27 acres, and people are waiting there.
It's interesting you mentioned two slogans, Sarv Dharm Sambhav and Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and Mr. Abbas, both of them are in the stadium where Elan Modi is about to begin. The Prime Minister has entered and it's splashed on the walls. Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It's about family, it's about friendship, it is about equality. Mr. Abbas.
Well, Padmaja ji, I completely agree with you. As a matter of fact, Veena Sikri ji very beautifully articulated this point even before myself and Shazia ji. We also need to understand that it's absolutely great that Modi ji is forming such fantastic relations with UAE, Qatar, not just them, but even Iran as well. That's wonderful. I think it's something to look forward to. But also, like I said, Padmaja ji, these leaders of BJP government and the party must also toe the same line. For mere votes, they should not go against a particular community. for few votes, they must not do Hindu-Muslim.
But sir, isn't that a very cynical view? You will look at one random person in one random city, but you won't look at what the Prime Minister of the country is doing.
Yes, Padmaja ji, I'm not talking about a random city, random leader. I'm talking about BJP leaders here in my state of Karnataka who go all guns blazing. According to them, Muslims are pancharwalas. As per Tejas,
what for you is bigger?
Parliament.
Is one MLA, I'm saying even an MP in Karnataka, bigger than the Prime Minister of India?
But he's a part of all the people who make the Prime Minister. He's a Lok Sabha MP. So बूंद से समंदर बनता है, हर एक सांसद से प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनता है.
तो आप समंदर को छोड़ करके बूंद पे ही अटके रहेंगे. भाई समंदर क्या बोल रहा है वो आप देख लीजिए ना.
बिना बूंद पे समंदर कैसे बनेगा? हर वोट इंपॉर्टेंट है ना. Larger point, Padmaja ji, I agree with you. Larger point, I think Modi ji should take a strict action against leaders who do Hindu-Muslim so that India becomes one land in the world where we truly show Vasudeva Kutumbakam.
Okay, Harshvardhan ji, India's image will never be completely redeemed till the time that all of these fringe elements are shut up. It doesn't matter that the UAE and Bahrain have conferred Mr. Modi with their highest civilian honors just before the 2019 elections. Saudi Arabia has done the same before that. We've already mentioned the kind of relationship between UAE and India. And I think not enough is being said about what happened in Qatar. किसी ने एक्सपेक्ट नहीं किया था. लोग यहाँ पर अपने हाथ मल रहे थे खुशी से कि अरे वाह मोदी सरकार की फजीहत हो गई है, डेथ रो पे लोग पहुंच गए हैं. 5 महीने के अंदर कतर ने उनको छोड़ा और अब कल मोदी जी कतर जा रहे हैं.
पद्मजा जी, मुझे लगता है कि सबसे पहले तो प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की इस बात के लिए प्रशंसा होनी चाहिए कि उन्होंने डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स और जो डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस होते हैं इसको अलग कर दिया. भारत में हिंदू, मुसलमान या ईसाई या कोई और या किसी और से किस तरह से रहते हैं इसका दुनिया के दूसरे देशों के साथ भारत के रिश्तों पर कोई असर नहीं पड़ना चाहिए. ये फ्रॉम द डे वन यही पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए थी जब हमारा देश स्वतंत्र होकर गणतंत्र बन गया. हम यहाँ लड़ते हैं, हम हिंदू मुसलमान भारतीय हैं, हम अपना झगड़ा करेंगे, अपना सुलझाएंगे, हमें फिर किसी विषय पर लगेगा तो हम लड़ेंगे. लेकिन यहाँ के मुसलमान और हिंदू के झगड़े की वजह से हमारे रिश्ते इस्लामिक कंट्रीज के साथ, इस्लामिक मुल्कों के साथ खराब होंगे, ये फ्रॉड सेकुलर आइडिया है. यहाँ के मुसलमान हिंदू के साथ लड़ेंगे और दुनिया के इस्लामिक देशों से कहेंगे कि आप हिंदू देश होने के नाते दबाव बनाइए, ये फ्रॉड सेकुलर आइडिया है. आज जो आबू धाबी में मंदिर बनता दिख रहा है, जिसका लोकार्पण करने के लिए प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी वहां गए हैं, वो इस वाली जो फ्रॉड सेकुलरिज्म वाली धारणा है इसको ध्वस्त करता है. डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस भारत के एक कंट्री के तौर पर, एक नेशन के तौर पर किस तरह से होते हैं उसको स्थापित करता है, और स्थापित नहीं करता है, उसको प्रतिष्ठित करता है, उसको बहुत शानदार तरीके से स्थापित करता है. जब उसी को लेकर हम आगे बढ़ते हैं तो कतर के साथ भी, जिसके अलग अलग मसलों पर हमसे मतभेद भी हो सकते हैं, हमारे और दूसरे देशों के रिश्तों के आधार पर वो हो सकता है कि हमें कहे कि नहीं इजराइल से इनके रिश्ते क्यों अच्छे हैं, इनके रिश्ते अमेरिका से क्या ठीक है या नहीं ठीक है, इनके रिश्ते चाइना के साथ कैसे हैं. लेकिन जब इंडिया और कतर के रिश्तों की बात आती है तो प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी और वहां के शासक के बीच का रिश्ता काम करता है. और मुझे लगता है आज एक देश के तौर पर हम दुनिया में स्थापित हो रहे हैं. प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी और उनकी सरकार की ये जो फॉरेन अफेयर्स पॉलिसी है, डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस बनाने की पॉलिसी है, ये शानदार है. हर भारतवासी का सीना गर्व से चौड़ा हो जाता है और मंदिर बन रहा है तो भारतीय होने के नाते हम सबको खुश होना ही चाहिए.
Saman Chaudhary, do you think that we are getting stuck in very narrow view? We are like, oh, X has said this, why has Ishwarappa said this, why has some Swami Nityanand said this? Whereas we are missing that you have countries like Bahrain, UAE, Saudi giving the highest civilian honor. If this man was truly leading a party and a government which was anti-Muslim, would these leaders risk their entire political capital by not just rubbing shoulders with him, but recognizing him as a friend of their country?
First, I'm not sure whether I'm correct 100% or not. But I need to correct your opening statement about the opening of the first ever Hindu temple in the UAE. I believe that's not a little bit not correct, because the oldest mosque was built up in the UAE in the year 1936, when UAE allotted land to build a temple to Uttam Chand Bhatia ji out there. Then you have got the Krishna Haveli temple already there, Jebel Ali Mandir is already there. The Burj Dubai is the oldest Hindu temple recorded in the UAE, is still there. But that aside, another temple is being built. Our Prime Minister is going to inaugurate there because a lot of population is there. But then you see there are very troubling questions with India's relation with the Middle East. It's a hot and cold relationship. Why I say this? Now you take the case of the Qatar's release of the diplomatic, you call it a diplomatic slave. But the fact remains that the Wahhabi rulers of the Middle East acknowledge and recognize money and money only. The sailors were released only after Modi ji signed a 20-year deal for supply of LNG from Qatar from 2028 to 2048. Second point, Padmaja, these were the same countries because of which Nupur Sharma was designated as a fringe element by none other than the Modi Sarkar. And look, Nupur is living the life of a prisoner in her own country.
I am so glad at least you have recognized that a woman is being forced to live the life of a prisoner in her own country. You have stayed away from mentioning why she is forced to live that life of a prisoner, sir. Would you care to address thanks to who she is living the life of a prisoner in her own country?
Padmaja, can you just categorically say how come Nupur Sharma, the spokesperson of the world's largest political party, was named as a fringe element by the Indian government?
Sir, you will keep pussyfooting around my question. Never mind, you will never have the courage to answer that question. I am at least glad you recognize that in a so-called majoritarian Hindu country, a Hindu woman who belonged to the ruling party is forced to live the life of a prisoner. I really wish you had the courage to say thanks to who she is living the life of a prisoner, thanks to which people who are threatening her with death. But anyway, I think we all know the answer. Nobody will say it on national TV. Let me bring back the one point that you did make to Veena Sikri. What do you make of this argument, ma'am, that essentially it's just money talking? It is neither Mr. Modi nor real diplomacy, nor anything spectacular that has been achieved by the government.
No, not at all. I think that, money, if you can say money is important for every country, economic development is important for every country, that's all there. But that's all been all along. Why is it that now, in these 9 years, we have seen this great flowering of the relationship between India and the Gulf? Indians have been living in the Gulf for millennia. We have a civilizational relationship with the Gulf countries. Millennia ago, the trade was there. There were Arab dhows coming to the western coast of India. Indian ships were going there. The trade was carrying on to Europe thanks to the people living in those countries. And we know also that the recent India-Middle East corridor that is being built to Europe, this is a rebirth of the millennia-old civilization. So all that is there, and the countries, the leaders are now recognizing that millennial-old civilizational interaction had a value. It had a value for both sides. It was a win-win situation, not only for economics, but also for living in peace, also for harmony of the Gulf countries themselves with the rest of the world. So the leaders of the Gulf countries, Qatar and UAE and others, I think they are giving the message to their own people as much as they are giving it to the rest of the world, that we are now prepared to live together in friendship. Vasudev Kutumbakam, Sarva Dharma Sambhav, all that is coming to life. It is a recognition of this reality. And they are telling their own people, the messages to their own people also, that let us accept and move ahead. Nobody is infringing any religion. Let everybody observe their own religion, have their own rights and respect, and let everybody else respect that. So this is a very important acceptance of the message that that Prime Minister Modi has been conveying for many, many years now. And certainly when you talk about the fossil fuel deal, the LNG, liquefied natural gas deal of $78 billion, it's very important. But it's important for India as well as for the Qatar. It's it's giving us our energy security. We need that energy security to develop. We need the fixed price availability of LNG to continue our development, to make our long-term plans for becoming a Viksit Bharat. That is very important. And our target for Viksit Bharat is 2047. And this is till 2048. So it is always a win-win solution. You cannot expect any development in international bilateral and multilateral relations until you can create this win-win solution which gives them something and gives something to us, and both of us moving together ahead give something to the rest of the world. So this is a very, I feel that the recognition of this message by the leaders of the Gulf, of Saudi Arabia, of Qatar, UAE and all the other countries is so valuable, because we have spent decades, the first 50 years after our independence, 60 years after our independence, always with Pakistan thinking that they have the, birthright on relationships with these countries, and always trying to get statements issued against India and others. Now we are long past that. That hyphenation has gone.
Ms. Sikri, can I ask you a slightly, controversial question? Do you think for long India allowed its domestic political concerns dictate its foreign policy? And I say this specifically, for example, with the kind of relationship we had, or rather the non-existent relationship we had with Israel, because we never wanted to antagonize the Islamic world, and yet we never had the kind of strong Islamic world connections that we have today. So what were those domestic concerns that were ill-informing our diplomatic ties?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. You touched on a very, very important point, because I think creating this kind of so-called domestic compulsions, which were nothing but vote bank politics. So this was wrong. It does not give you the strength of support from all communities to move forward. But today that strength is building up, because every program, every welfare program, whether it is building toilets, building homes, Ujjwal Yojana, Jan Dhan Yojana, it is going to everybody regardless of religion, regardless of community, and that is what is building the faith in the government. And other governments are seeing this. I mean, we have had references to various individual cases, but other governments realize that 1 or 2 or 5 cases in a country the size of India, billions of people, 1.4 billion people, those are absolutely microscopic compared to the efforts of the government through their welfare programs to make sure that this prosperity, the development, the benefits, whether it is free ration, goes to everybody. And that being reflected in the vote in states like UP and in other states where it's clear that it is that support which is being reflected. So while we are absolutely correct to come out and discuss any problem, any issue that any individual may feel is of concern, but looking at the bigger picture is as important as taking on board those individual.
I think that the key words there are bigger picture. I know you want to come in, Kamruzaman Chaudhary, but before that I want to bring in Asif Sohail as well. For all this while, there was a traditional narrative that was projected. Now these countries, Asif Sohail, are looking at the bigger picture and not what this organization and that NGO and that YouTuber is telling me in some seminar.
पद्मा जी देखिए, जिसने 27 एकड़ की जमीन डोनेट की है मंदिर को, एक मुस्लिम बादशाह थे वहां पे। हमारे पास तो सेक्युलरिज्म है और मुस्लिम कंट्रीज का बहुत बड़ा स्टेक है इंडिया के इकोनॉमी में। लाखों की तादाद में लोग वहां पे काम कर कर पैसे भेजते हैं तो घर चल रहा है। तो हमें चाहिए यहाँ पर भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेट करे। और दूसरी चीज, पहले भी कई मंदिरें बनाई गई है, इन्होंने भारत के लिए करा है, कोई पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को नहीं है। अगर कोई इसको अगर अपनी ब्रांडिंग कर रहा है तो मुल्क के अंदर क्यों, यहाँ के मुसलमानों से पहले मोहब्बत बताइए। यहाँ के इबादत गाहों को तोड़ते हैं, दाढ़ी वाले को मारते हैं, मॉब लीचिंग होती है, वो सब छोड़कर वहां पे क्या दोस्ती बताने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रही है। ये जो भी हो रहा है एक इंडिया के लिए कर रहे हैं इस्लामिक कंट्री, ना कोई एक पर्टिकुलर पार्टी के लिए, ना जो सो सावरकर की विचारधारा की जो लोग हैं उनके लिए नहीं करा जा रहा है। ये एक बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर का, महात्मा गांधी का जो मुल्क है हिंदुस्तान, उनके लिए करा जा रहा है। हमें समझना चाहिए इस चीज को। हम एक गलत मैसेज दे रहे हैं और अभी किसी ने नुपुर शर्मा का बताया,
बट
जेल में
मैं समझ नहीं पा रही आपका पॉइंट क्या है। देखिए, आप कह रहे हैं कि चलो मोदी जी झूठ बोल रहे हैं जाकर के यूएई में, बट बाकी सब लोग उनका झूठ बिलीव क्यों कर रहे हैं?
मैंने तो बोला ही नहीं। मैडम मैंने तो बोला ही नहीं, आप बोल रहे हैं मोदी जी झूठ बोल रहे हैं बोल के। मैंने बोला है पहले भी मंदिरें बनाई गई है वहां पे। इस्लाम में देखिए लकुम दीनुकुम वाला दीन, जिसका दीन उनके साथ, इस्लाम हर एक मजहब की मोहब्बत इज्जत करना सिखाता है। हमें भी चाहिए यहाँ पे जो लोग मुसलमान आज भारत में परेशान हैं, उनके साथ भी ठहरने की कोशिश करना चाहिए, ना बल्कि उनको मॉब लिंचिंग करा जाए, उनके खाने पे, उनके कपड़ों पे, उनके इबादत गाहों पे हमले करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
सर अगर इतनी परेशानी है इंडिया में, तो ये आपको लग रहा है बहरीन को दिखाई नहीं दे रही, सऊदी अरेबिया को दिखाई नहीं दे रही, यूएई को दिखाई नहीं दे रही, कतर को दिखाई नहीं दे रही?
मैडम इसलिए तो आंखें खोलने के लिए तो बुलाया है ना प्रधानमंत्री को। वो बोल रहे हैं जो परिवार के लोग, जो सावरकर की विचारधारा के लोग यहाँ पे जो रह रहे हैं, जो सता रहे हैं, उनको समझाने के लिए बताए कि इस्लाम जो सो कोई मजहब का दुश्मन नहीं है, सबके साथ लेके हमारा दीन, हमारे नबी ने हमें यही सिखाया है, सबकी इज्जत करना, हर मजहब की मोहब्बत सिखाई है, हर इंसानियत की मोहब्बत सिखाई है हमें। यही बताने के लिए वहां तक उन्हें बुलाया गया है। अच्छी चीज है, हमें प्राउड होना चाहिए। हमारे प्रधानमंत्री आज जाकर यूएई में बैठकर जो एक मंदिर का इनॉग्रेशन कर रहे हैं, फखर की बात है। और यही यहाँ पर भी आए, यहाँ के भी मस्जिदों को भी वो बनाने की कोशिश करे, डेवलप करने की कोशिश करे, बल्कि रुकाना चाहिए जो तोड़ रहे हैं।
Sir, 7 visits हो गए. If that is indeed your argument that the UAE is calling the Prime Minister to teach him about religious tolerance, then that's an awfully long lesson. Anyhow, Shazia, let me please respond.
So, I mean, it's so sad. I feel so sad. They make everything so small and they're so embittered. And, their own myopic vision just mars and eclipses big historic breakthroughs that we're seeing today. But, going back to what was being discussed earlier, you see, when it comes to Israel or Palestine, we've managed to dehyphenate when it comes to our relationship with both the countries. If you look at Ukraine and Russia, we are individually friends with both the countries. And in fact, Modi ji's word prevails at a time of conflict and war when there is a ceasefire so that students, not just Indian but others, can actually cross over. So the big things are happening, but some people are so stuck. And what has just been said is an utter lie. Mosques are not being broken. Illegal structures which have come up are being broken. Some of them are mandirs, some of them could be masjids. That is what's happening. Nothing is being done. As far as mob lynching is concerned, it's a state subject. It has happened. It's a large country. These things happen and they must be condemned. But placing it at PM's door and connecting those with what is happening today and the idea of unity, of inclusiveness, to diminish that in light of these incidents is unfair. Not one person here, not any one panelist here can actually cite one incident where there has been any discrimination on the basis of religion when it comes to dispensation of welfare schemes. In fact, Muslims have been the biggest beneficiaries because they were so poor and kept poor by the parties all these three panelists claim to represent. Thanks to them, Muslims were in such a bad state, still are, but efforts are being made by Modi government to give them what they deserve, what they've deserved all along.
In fact, I just want to pause for a second. The Prime Minister there is on stage.
Housing.
Sorry to interrupt you, Shazia Almi. I just want to tell our viewers, with the Prime Minister on stage, and Harshvardhan ji, just to point out, when Mr. Modi had gone to America, people said, oh, this is hysteria being drummed up by the Gujarati expats there. When it was about his visit to Australia, and, the Prime Minister there said that Modi is a rock star, they said, oh, this is only because he wants to appeal to his own electorate. Now, here he is in a Muslim majority country, and he still gets the same kind of reception. At the end of 9 years, can we accept maybe he is doing something right? कुछ तो सही होगा. And plus somebody here mentioned Nupur Sharma. उस वाक्य को हुए अभी 2 ही साल हुए हैं. Despite that, UAE, which condemned those comments, is still today hosting the Prime Minister, extending a hand of friendship. In 2019, the UAE supported India's move to do away with 370 in Kashmir. कुछ तो सही किया होगा, हर्षवर्धन जी.
पद्मजा जी, कुछ भी सही कर लें, कुछ तो सही किया होगा नहीं, कुछ भी सही कर लें, लेकिन इस देश में एक बड़ा वर्ग है जो इस सच को मानने को तैयार नहीं. जो देश से बाहर गया वो भारतीय हो जाता है, और जब भारतीय हो जाता है तो वो हिंदू मुसलमान की तरह नरेंद्र मोदी को नहीं देखता है. और जब वो देखता है कि उसके देश का प्रधानमंत्री उस देश के साथ कैसे रिश्ते रखता है, जहां पर उसका जो उसकी कर्म भूमि है, मातृभूमि उसकी भारत है, लेकिन जिस जगह वो रहता है वहां से कैसे रिश्ते उसके देश का प्रधानमंत्री रखता है, तो उसके मन में और सम्मान बढ़ जाता है। और यही होना चाहिए। दरअसल मैं बार बार ये कह रहा हूं कि डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स और डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस विद अदर कंट्रीज, जब तक इसको आप डिफरेंशिएट करके नहीं देखेंगे, तब तक आप एक अच्छे राष्ट्र नायक, एक अच्छे शासक नहीं हो सकते। और जिनकी चिंता आप कर रही पद्मजा जी, वो कभी सुखी नहीं हो सकते। वो विघ्न संतोषी प्रजाति है, उनको तो कुछ वो निकाल के लाएंगे, इसमें भी कुछ वो निकाल के लाएंगे। सामने आप देखिए जो लोग खड़े हैं, और मैं तो लगातार रिपोर्ट्स देख रहा हूं, कोई ऐसा शख्स नहीं मिला, कोई ऐसा व्यक्ति नहीं मिला जिसने अभी तक कोई ऐसी रिपोर्ट की हो जो थोड़ा सा भी उंगली रखने लायक हो। सब कह रहे हैं कि कमाल का काम हुआ है। ये हिंदू मंदिर ही नहीं, भारत और हमारे देश के रिश्ते कमाल के हैं, हिंदू मुसलमान कोई इशू नहीं है। लेकिन जिनको यहां वो वाली राजनीति करनी है, जिनको लगता है कि नरेंद्र मोदी की इस राजनीति से उनकी फ्रॉड सेकुलर राजनीति ध्वस्त हो चुकी है, वो तो आग लगाएंगे। कुछ तो नहीं, सब कुछ हुआ है, सिर्फ उनके लिए कुछ होता रह गया है।
In fact, if you could tell from your memory, your experience, Ambassador Sikri, I remember there was a time when UNMO-GIP and OIC used to be considered stakeholders in Kashmir. They used to pass these lengthy resolutions at Pakistan's behest and say human rights violations. And now we're at a point where Pakistan tells the Organization of Islamic Countries, pass a resolution against India, and they say, thanks, but no thanks. How was this done?
Yeah, but absolutely, because we, in previous decades, we allowed Pakistan to run this narrative internationally. And, even this whole question of Kashmir, it was Pakistan who was running the narrative and raising it. And we were not really defending it in the manner that we should have done aggressively, because Pakistan was doing it far too aggressively. But now we are not a country to remain behind at all. Whether it is surgical strikes and the Balakot strike at the border, or whether it is the international community, whether it is talking to the Gulf countries, talking to the leaders of the Gulf countries, bringing their faith in India, building their faith in India, and telling them and showing them, inviting them to India. They're guests at our Republic Day parade and other events, and they're seeing everywhere. Surely they have their own friends and contacts, and they're getting good feedback. So they know that what the Prime Minister is telling them is the truth. And everybody is participating in the development progress. If GDP is going up, per capita income going up, it's going up for everybody. There is no discrimination. And as Shazia very correctly pointed out, it is the Muslim community which was actually at the lower end of the spectrum before.
Ambassador Sikri, I'm sorry to interrupt you. The Prime Minister started speaking and some rather loud cheers. Let's cut live.